Profitable practices. Farm solutions for people, profit, and the planet on Real Agriculture is brought to you by Farm Credit Canada and RBC Royal Bank.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to Profitable Practices. Today I'm near Kinburn, Ontario, right here in the city limits of Ottawa, where I'm catching up with Chris Moore and Lyndsey Smith from Shady Creek Lamb Co. On this episode, we're going to learn about solar grazing and how they've turned it into a profitable practice on their farm. Chris and Lyndsey, tell us about your farm operation. Give us a snapshot.
So we are Shady Creek Lamb Company. We raise a large flock within Ottawa city limits. We raise our sheep a bit differently. We raise them in solar sites doing solar grazing, and we sell our lamb and our wool in the Ottawa area.
Now, feeding animals is a huge part of livestock production and a key to profitability. Tell us about your approach.
About 5 years ago, we decided if we were going to make a living sheep farming, we were going to need more acres for feed and for manure management. We got started with a local solar site that's about 200 acres. We are now over almost at 1,000 acres of solar that we're responsible for vegetation abatement at. And once the solars are done for the season, we will switch to cover crops at some cash crop farms in the area.
Tell us more about solar grazing. What was the strategy? What were you hoping to achieve?
So solar grazing is an interesting way to feed sheep for sure, in that we are actually paid to graze a solar site. So instead of using tractors and mowers, our sheep are employed to clear out the vegetation underneath and in front of the panels. And it was a way to expand our land base without having to take on the debt of buying land or potentially even trying to rent land for hay ground. So it really required a complete sort of rethink of our entire production system. And we brought sheep here in the fall of 2017 for a pilot project. The company was happy with what we did. We were happy with how the sheep did. And so we started full-time in 2018, not only bringing the sheep in early May to start grazing, but also to lamb here. And so we've changed our entire production system to keep the sheep on grass as long as possible, including cover cropping after we're done here at the solar in about October, and carrying it right through. So it's been a way that we've actually been able to triple the size of our flock without having to take on extra debt.
Tell us about how grazing at the solar site works. Give us the nuts and bolts.
On this site, it's approximately 200 acres, 23 megawatts, and produces enough electricity for 7,000 homes. We have 450 ewes approximately here with lambs, 5 guardian dogs, and we are moving the sheep daily, and we are using electric mesh fences because there's ewes with lambs. And other sites, we might only use the electric reels. We have 2 solar energizers powering these fences. The grazing season typically starts early May, end of April. We will go up until October, sometimes as late as November. Water is on site, but we do haul it around the site using big water tanks, and we have water totes, and some pastures and other areas operate off a float.
We should also mention, so one of the big challenges with solar grazing is certainly the fencing. They do need to do a really good job of removing the vegetation in front of those panels, under the panels, and so we do have to cross fence. We move them, as Chris said, every day, maybe every 2 days, and so that's a huge labor component, and that has been a big consideration for making this really work, is figuring out that labor component and making sure the sheep stay healthy and do a good job.
How do you measure success? From a sustainability perspective, what benefits are you seeing on the farm?
So success for us, I think, is certainly caring for our sheep, first and foremost, making sure that they're healthy and productive. But it's also about being able to run a business and being able to be economically viable. And so solar grazing offers another income stream, which has been really important, especially, during those summer months while the lambs are growing and we're not making sales per se. But one of the biggest things that certainly we're very proud of here at the solar site and the other solars that we run on is the biodiversity and the habitat that managed grazing really encourages. We've got, as you can see here, we've got just a whole bunch of milkweed and a really diverse amount of plants. There's always something flowering. There's honeybees on site. We find some really fascinating insects and birds living in the site, and it's really alive, and we're really proud about that. we're proud that, for this area, there's a lot of corn and beans, and this provides 200 acres right in the middle of all that, of ground cover, of flowering plants. That's really important to the habitat here.
How does solar grazing impact the profitability of your farm?
So solar grazing can really change the profit dynamic, especially for a sheep farm. We know that we can raise lamb very affordably because we have grazing. We have a lot of grazing, but also we're paid to graze it. So we know that we can raise a lamb efficiently in a cost-effective way, and so it does buffer us against potentially, drops in lamb prices, those sorts of things. We know there's lots of demand for lamb. That's not the problem, but certainly with high feed costs or high overhead, it can be pretty tough to make a profit, and so this really helps us keep our costs down per lamb.
Any advice for farmers who want to tackle an innovative project like this?
Probably the first thing would be recognizing your worth, recognizing the worth of other professionals around you, and investing in those sorts of things is really important. Being in something that's mainstream enough that there's risk management or insurance to help cover you is kind of a good plan, I think. And be ready to make a mistake and learn.
What's next for Shady Creek Lamb in solar grazing?
So what's next is a really great question. We have grown very quickly. We are learning every year. I don't know that we've had a production year yet that has been the same as the year before. So I think that there's a lot of sense in trying to be better before going even bigger. At the same time, there's an incredible demand for solar grazing, for vegetation abatement, and sheep are incredibly well suited for it. So we are going to keep doing this and probably keep growing every year.